Hi, teammates. This is Sean J. McCall, as usual. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Eurostep, where we look to try to, yeah, take a look behind the scenes of European basketball. But of course, as you know, if you follow me for a while and you've watched the show, I like to have different sports players or sports authorities to give us their background on sometimes like the move from America to Europe or vice versa. And that's no difference with my guest tonight. Before we start, I want to remind you you can drop down in the comment section down there. If you write a question in there, I will try to infuse it during the live broadcast. If you want everybody to see it, you can put it down there in the comment section. If you just want me to see it, if you look down at the bottom with the question mark and the speech bubble, you can throw it in there and only I will see it. And I check it when I see somebody writes in there. So I will definitely try to get it in there. Usually the questions that are asked, I probably have in my questions list anyway. But if you would like to ask something that you want to hear the answer to, please feel free to drop it in there. And of course, for family members, if you want to throw some inside jokes down there in the comment section that nobody else will understand except you guys, feel free to do that as well. So yeah. So once again, I'm thinking outside the box with my guest tonight. Actually, his sons go to the school where I'm an educator, and yeah, so I hope I don't actually get fired for this because maybe it's crossing the line. I don't know. I'm not worried about that. But Dustin Jeffrey is a hockey player. He plays the position center for the Wolfsburg Grizzlies or Grizzlies Wolfsburg in the professional league here in Germany. Wolfsburg is about 30 minutes away from where I live in Braunschweig, and they have a professional team, hockey team there, and this is his first season there. He made a very successful transition from playing in America in the NHL to coming over to Europe, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to have him on, because I think some of the parallels are there for athletes that are basketball players that make the transition from playing college to coming overseas to play in any European league as well. Yeah, so let's get Dustin on in here without further ado. Where's he at? There he is. Invite, add, and then you'll pop up in probably a couple seconds. Hi, Jesse. Thanks for coming. So it should be gone already. Where's Dustin at? Hi, Nate. Did it send? No, it didn't send. Now it's sent again. Let's see if it goes through. It should be popping on in here. Is it not going through to you, Dustin? For those of you that don't know, Dustin is not the big Instagram dude, so I'm glad that he actually asked to come on. Dustin, I don't know why it's not letting me add you. Why don't it says you're unable to join? Why don't you send me a request? Hit the plus button with the kind of camera. Hit that, and it should send me an invitation. It's either that one or the one next to it with the arrow with the little guy. I don't know if you see the same thing I see since I'm the host, but it should be one of those two. For some reason, it's not letting me add you. I push the button and it's not working. I see you in the chat. When I push, it doesn't. Okay, so far it seems like it might be working now. Let's see. Are you still there? Okay, wait. Now, maybe it works now. So I accepted your request. It should work now. Always the stupid technical stuff. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Accept. I accepted it again. Hmm. Hmm. Mona Stir. When am I bringing Liz Mills back? I don't know. I haven't had a repeat guest yet. But maybe I'll bring her on another time. Now it's saying Dustin cannot join. Hmm. This is really weird. Okay. Ah, there we go. We got it. We
You
got it.
got it
We're
working.
good. We're good. Don't tell me that your wife did that for you.
No, I was trying to do it on the computer and then it wasn't working, so I had to do it
Ah,
on my
okay.
phone.
Okay, yeah, that's why, yeah. Okay, so wait, let me get myself situated a little bit. So there we go. First off, Dustin, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your night to come on your very first podcast.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it.
I
Yeah, I thought
I
it would be
am
interesting and obviously it's an opportunity, so I thought it would be cool to jump on here and have a chat.
I am very honored that I am your first, and hopefully not your last. We'll see how you do. Maybe it will be your last if you're a terrible guest, but I don't think so.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. You never know.
So basically, this is how it'll go, buddy. We're just gonna talk, man. Just answer how you want to answer. If you don't want to answer anything, don't. But I'm not going to ask you anything crazy that you don't already know. I'm not looking for sound bites or anything like that. So yeah, just share what you want to share, and let's have kind of like a friendly conversation.
Perfect.
So this first thing is not a question; it's more like an observation. I've had quite a few Canadian teammates in my history as a ball player, and one of my best friends is also Canadian. Um, and every time I meet Canadian people, I think, damn, these are the nicest people on the planet. Like Canadians are always the nicest people. I can't imagine a Canadian getting mad or anything like that. I always think, damn, these are nice people. So I'm throwing that out at you because you were really cool about wanting to come on the show when I approached you about it. You're really like, okay, let's do it. So you're in that nice Canadian.
Yeah, I think it's a reputation that we carry around. I feel like everybody's really, it's just a laid back kind of culture and the way, especially like way we grew up and everybody in, our circle of friends, it's very casual. You get along with everybody. So yeah, I think it's a good trait to have. And if that's what everybody looks at when they think Canadians, it's a good start.
Yeah. So let's take it back to 2007. You get drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins. What was that moment like? Because I want to see the parallel between guys that get drafted in the NBA and what a hockey player
Yeah,
goes
so
through.
it actually for me it started a couple years before that. So I started in junior, and then which in for hockey players you either have two routes: you go to major junior or you go to university in the U.S. And that's kind of your path if you want to go professionally. So for the NHL draft, it's usually your second year in junior, but at the end of my first, I tore my ACL. So
Okay.
then I was rehabbing it, and I had a late start into my second season, and didn't have a very good start. Obviously, coming off a pretty big injury, and then I got
Right.
traded from my junior club. So I was 17 years old. Got traded to another club, and didn't get drafted that year, which would be my first year in the draft. And then finally had a full summer and was ready to, prepared for my third year in junior. And then I was able to have a really, really good season and wasn't sure if I was going to get drafted because I was a year older.
Right.
Maybe it was one of those things I'd be a free agent and be able to kind of pick my spot. But, I was fortunate enough to get picked by Pittsburgh, who, that was kind of right when they were starting to become the team that they were for the next,
Right.
well, even up to today, they're still
Right.
in the top tier in the NHL. And so, I was pretty fortunate to go into a situation where I was with, some probably all-time Hall of Fame players on that club. And it was, an experience for me that was, something I could still draw on today, like being around those guys and the way they carried themselves. So, I was pretty fortunate, but it was, yeah, it was obviously really rewarding, but it was a couple of years in the making to come to that moment being drafted
Right.
there.
Of course, it's not just overnight. Oh, wow, we're going to draft you. Of course. Um, did you watch the draft? Like, were you like following it, or how did you find out you got drafted, or how was
Yeah,
it for you?
I forget honestly exactly what happened. I think I was called because I think I was out at the farm. I grew up on a farm outside of Sarnia, and I forget exactly what we were doing, but I wasn't really watching. You know, it kind of the year before, you were a little bit disappointed, but I didn't have that strong of a season, so I wasn't really expecting to get drafted. And even I had an agent, North American agent at the time, and same thing. They weren't really sure if I was going to go. I ended up going almost one of the later rounds. Like I think there
Mhm.
was 9 rounds in the draft, so it wasn't like I was a real high pick. So
Right.
um, we were more focused on just we're going to be able to put in the work and see where we end up. And I was fortunate to go there, and going into that next season, I had a really really successful camp, and they signed me to a contract and then sent me back to my junior club for my last year.
So what's it like when like you get drafted and you know, wow, I'm really close to my dream. But of course, especially for younger players, it's not that you get drafted and you're automatically on the NHL team. They send you back down to the juniors, or they send you to one
Yep,
of their farm teams, things like that.
yep,
That's usually how it goes, from what I understand.
yep.
But you're one step closer. Like, I know for basketball players, if they get drafted, it's like the greatest thing in the world, and
Yeah.
there's a big party and stuff like that. But you're still not quite there yet. So
Yeah, like
how do you
obviously
feel?
it was huge. Like to get drafted, to hear your name called, to get a jersey, get a call from the organization. It's that rewarding feeling. It's the same. I'm sure it's in any sport. Anytime
Yeah,
that you're one of those picks, because that there's NHL. It's the same as basketball. It's all over the world.
right.
You're one of those players that you're the top 200 in that age bracket, that they want you to be part of their organization. But then I think when you go to for us, like when after I was drafted, they have a summer camp a couple weeks later. So then you go in and you do all your fitness testing. They see where you're at. They send you home with the program, and then you go back end of September, and then you have that's July 1st. So you have 2 or 3 months to get on their program, and
Right.
then you go back in end of September, start of August. Well, now you're there with all the guys that have been pro for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and then you're like, ooh, so I'm close, but I might not be that close.
Right.
And that's kind of the next step. Like you realize how close you are, and then you realize the difference, and then you see. So you have the guys that have been in the NHL team for the last however many years. Well, then there's also the guys that are the next 2, 3, 4 years older than you that have been playing pro in their farm system, and so now
Mhm.
you're competing with these guys for the spots, or you're trying to take their job to be the next call up, and you realize there's a lot more to it than just
Right.
being good at what one part of what you do.
Did you ever have like a moment, like when you were, after you get drafted, you go to the kind of camp and stuff. Was there ever a moment when you walked in the locker room, or you saw somebody and you were like, oh shit,
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
really
I
here.
think for me, um, it kind of came. Well, obviously, when you walk in the room, for me, you see Sidney Crosby, you see Malkin. For us, these guys they're only a year or two older than us, but they're already superstars in the NHL. So you're
Right.
like, holy Jesus! Like these are the guys I'm trying to go on the ice with. But my big one came for me was when after I went back for junior, and then this would be my first year professional. I was lucky enough. I got games in the NHL, and I got called up pretty early. And Mario Lemieux, who was an owner of Pittsburgh at the time, but he was one of the
All
favorites
time great.
growing all-time
Yeah.
greats, one of the
Yeah.
favorites for me growing up. Like he's just a legend. And he walks in the dressing room, and he came over and asked, because I was kind of fighting a little bit of an injury in the American League at the time, but I still got called up, and asked me how I was feeling. And I don't know if I had any words. I don't even know if I answered him. I was just like looking at him like, holy, it's like this guy didn't even walk in. He just kind of floated in with an aura around him. You're like, Jesus, like that was kind of the one I was like, holy, this is special.
So you spoke on it a little bit. So you made your debut in the NHL in 2008, actually.
Yeah.
Um, your very first time putting on the jersey to go out on the ice. Were you nervous? Don't lie.
Oh, I was scared, scared. It was crazy. So I was home for Christmas. So in North America, they usually give you like 3 or 4 days around Christmas time that you can travel home. And I traveled home, and then I was coming. back and we had a practice on Boxing Day, like 26th afternoon, like a little bit later, and then we usually play the next day. And I got called in for the practice, and they asked how my break was and everything, and they're like, all right, well, you're going up. You're going up for your first game. I was like, what? So I call my parents first, call my brothers at home, and my dad and my two brothers and my one cousin drove like through the night, and
Wow.
we were playing in New Jersey, and so they drove through the night, and I can't remember exactly if it was an afternoon game or whatever the next day, but they made it for the game, and it
How
was.
many hours did they drive?
Well, from starting to New Jersey, it's probably 10 or 12 hours.
That's dope.
And they made it, and obviously to share that moment with family and stuff too. But it was, it was scary. Like New Jersey at that time, they won a cup a few years prior to that too, and so they still had an older veteran team. And I was playing center at the time, and I don't know if I want to face off against any of these guys. These guys they were grown men, old, and it was surreal. It was awesome. It was something that I'll never forget. And I was really, really fortunate that I was able to share it with family too, that was able to make it to the game, but it was awesome.
That's cool. So I got a name to throw out at you.
Yeah.
Tell me what you associate with this name.
Okay.
Manny Fernandez.
It sounds like a baseball player, but it's my first NHL goal.
And point.
And point, yeah.
First your point, and then about a month later, your first goal.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, it's funny. Like you age yourself. Like when I'm here, and obviously I think I'm one of the oldest guys on the team here. And they ask you to score your first NHL goal. Everybody's like, who? Never heard of the guy. But it was in Boston. It was awesome. It was a cool experience. And actually, one of the guys that was on the ice with me got an assist. We were both called up from the American League at the time, so we both went up together for the game. And he ended up getting an assist on my first goal. So it was pretty awesome.
Did you get the puck for your first goal?
I have the puck, yeah. I have the puck. I have a stick, and actually I have the official game sheet from that game as well.
Cool. I think this is one of the best stories in sports. I don't know exactly how true it is. That's why I'm glad to have you on. You have a Stanley Cup ring. You got to take the picture with the team, as far as I know. But you were not actually on the roster. Is that correct?
No, so I actually don't have a cup ring. Sometimes they do give them to guys. So that was my first year pro. I was on the team. I played 20 games with them during the season. So in the NHL, you need 40 games or 40 plus games in the regular season, or one game in the finals.
Okay.
To get a cup ring and to get your name on the Stanley Cup. Obviously, if there's injuries and stuff, they can petition to have guys put on, but I wasn't really in that situation. But it was a really cool experience. It's something, I was probably naive to think, because we had that team with the players that are still there, and you think you're going to do it every year. And the year before I turned pro, they lost in the finals, and then the next year I was a part of the team that went and won, and it was an unbelievable experience. But it just shows how competitive sports are. Like you always think, especially when it's your first year pro, you want to do this for 15, 20 years, and we'll be back in the finals every year. And you realize that that's not how it works, and you can't get back there.
It's so hard.
You can do whatever you can, and you just can't. It's
so hard.
So hard, and you never know. Every year there's another club coming up, or you have some injuries, and it happens. And then you look back and you're like, wow, that's 12, 13, 14 years, and you never had that opportunity again.
Yeah. What I was alluding to actually is what I hope you can shed some light on is the thing where Stanley Cup goes to a different person every day, or is it every week? And they kind of take it around.
They ship it. Everybody gets a day in their hometown or wherever they want to go. You can go wherever you want.
I think that's so dope.
It's sick. So in what year was that? Maybe 13 or 14. We won the championship in the American League.
Yeah.
And they have a trophy as well, and they shipped same thing. You get a day with it in your hometown, and you ship it right to your city. So I had it in Sarnia for a couple days, and was able to bring it to some grandparents and my wife's grandpa, we were able to show it to him, and like there were some really cool experiences with it. And I think I had one of my nieces sitting in it when she was like a year or two old. Like it was super cool. And same thing, we just wrapped it up, took it to FedEx, and they shipped it to the next person.
That's I think that's one of the coolest traditions in sports that people get to take that trophy. And I think I identify with it because my very first championship overseas was it wasn't the season, it was the cup. We won
Yeah.
the cup. And in that season we also won the title, we won the double,
Yeah.
but we won the cup in December. That was my first one. I had been overseas for 4 years. I think that was my fifth season. So it was my first title, and I did not give that thing up. We had the game away somewhere at a neutral site, and then we drove back to our place, which wasn't that far, and it was a big party and drinking and food stuff. And I have a picture somewhere with me holding that cup,
It's like
and
it was
I
your
did
own.
not let anybody get close to that cup. I had it the whole fucking night, and everybody's like, "Give me the cup." I was like, "No, no, no."
No, you can see
So
it, but you can't touch
yeah,
it.
no, this is mine. This is all me. So that's why I thought that's really cool because I
Oh, it's awesome. And then yeah, like you can plan so much with it, or you can plan nothing. Like some guys have like parades or bring it to their whole city or take it around arenas, or you can have your own party in your backyard if you want. Like you can do whatever you want with it.
that's
It's
that's
cool.
really cool. Um, oh no, I skipped that one. Um, so I want to touch base about uh your NHL career before moving over to Europe. So you bounced around a little bit. You went back to the minors. You were back up to NHL. You moved a little bit. In 2015, correct me if I'm wrong. In 2015, you got traded from Vancouver to the Islanders, the New York Islanders.
Yep.
Did you actually have to leave Vancouver and go to New Jersey, or did
Well,
it actually never materialize?
so yeah, like I never the kind of how it works is, with our contracts, the parent club, the NHL club owns the contract. So if they loan you to the American League's team, you're their property. So I was playing in Utica at the time, and that was Vancouver's farm team, and we got traded to the Islanders farm team basically in
Okay.
Bridgeport. So I never played games with Vancouver that year, and same thing. I went to the Islanders and never played games that year. So yeah, it was right at the deadline. There's a deadline every year,
Right.
and you just kind of sit around, see if you're one of the names getting traded at 3 p.m. on the day. And yeah, we got Vancouver or Utica was making a playoff run, and they were looking for a player that was, uh, could help them more. I ended up getting traded for a guy that I ended up playing with overseas, actually. And yeah, it's just kind of how the sport goes full circle. But he was a smaller winger that, and we had some strong centers at the time, so they were trying to load up in what they thought they needed for a championship. And we ended up going to a team that was, by the time we got traded to them, they were already in the playoffs. So we went there. We didn't even find an apartment. We lived in a hotel for the rest of the season, and then we knew we only had 20 games left after that. So
Mhm.
we played those games, and then we end up back in Sarnia for the rest of the summer.
So, what is it like, that feeling? Like you said, you're sitting around TV, kind of seeing if your name is going to be called to be traded at the deadline. What is it like when you see, like, damn, I just got traded?
It's interesting. So it happened to me my last 2 years before I came in. One of the reasons I came overseas was it happened to me in back-to-back seasons. So the first one I was pissed off because we were a first place club. I was a big part of it, and you obviously when you spend from September to March somewhere, and you think you're a big part of that squad, and you're trying to build yourself up to win a championship. And I won the previous season, the one before that. So that was,
Right.
you're like, yeah, we have a team here that can, maybe we can win back to back. And you get that call, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to another club that's competitive, and you're going to one that doesn't have a chance. They're already booking their vacations for the summer because it's already done.
Wow.
So that obviously that part's frustrating. And then the following season, our situation changed too, because we were married. I got married after the 13th season, or no, it would be the 14th season, and we were trying to start a family, and so my wife was pregnant at the time, and we're due end of March with our firstborn, and we get traded 3 weeks before that. And so like
That's
we
the
had
business,
a
right?
nursery set up, we had the
Oh,
doctors lined up, and I called my agent as soon as it happened, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done over here. Get me into Switzerland. I want to play in Switzerland. And, it just was done with the whole situation,
right.
be treated like that. But that time I was going from a team that was in the last place to a first place team that was trying to make a playoff push. And so the hockey situation was better, but it was the family situation
Right.
that,
Right.
and I had that conversation with the organization before. They're like, do you want us to try to move you? And I was like, not really. Like, obviously I want to win, but we're having a baby in the
Right.
next 3 or 4 weeks, and we just can finish the season here, and we're comfortable, and we had everything lined up. But it's a business as
It's the
well.
business. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they traded me and two other guys, and only received one guy back, so they freed two contract spots. Is kind of how they explained it, and that
That's the
now
business.
they can go into the college free agents and the major junior free agents and sign guys for their club moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, I was also a professional athlete for a long time, and yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. They don't take any kind of consideration over your family, what you have going on. It's just only about how you're producing, if you're producing or not, and if they can save money and things like that. It's tough, man. It's sometimes a little bit disillusioning,
Yeah.
kind of like I've been working my butt off for all of this, and now you're going to trade me? Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah, and yeah, that's what it is. It is a business, and obviously you're really frustrated at the time. But you know what? I got traded. We went in that situation. We got traded back to the Pittsburgh organization, where I had a lot of relationships, and it ended up working out great. Like we were able to find a doctor at a hospital. We had a beautiful apartment. We ended up getting our situation all set up, but it was frustrating.
stressful.
And that was basically the last thing that kind of pushed us to moving overseas.
How do you talk to? My next question is about coming overseas, but how do you have a talk with your agent and say, okay, this is not working for me here in the NHL. What other opportunities are there for me? Like, how did you speak to your agent about that
So
before you really went over? Because I'm getting to that.
yeah, so it started the couple seasons, off seasons before that. So in hockey, you have July 1st. That's where free agency starts, and that's when you can start talking to other teams. And we kind of threw the idea, for the NHL is the best league in the world, and
Right.
and that's where every kid dreams of playing there.
Yeah.
The second best league, it's obviously based on opinions, is Russia, because they pay the most, and they're trying to compete with the NHL, but then you're living in Russia. And then then there's pros and cons of the leagues around Europe, depending on the travel, the money, the what languages you want to learn, and which language you want to live in, if you want to bring your family and whatnot. So the 2 seasons prior to me coming over, we threw the idea around with my agents to go into Russia. We didn't have kids yet. It would be an experience for me and
Right.
Carly, but you're still living it. Do you want to give up on your dream of playing in the NHL? And that
Right.
was something. So we've had these discussions before.
Mhm.
Didn't really want to jump over, but it was something that we were like, we're throwing around the idea. What's the pros and cons? Like what do you want out of it? What's your so we had those discussions in the seasons leading up to it, and then that happened, and we had Nash, we had our oldest son, and then it was like, okay, now we can kind of narrow our scope. Now we know what we're looking for in terms of travel, money, which, what has the best combination for us. And that's kind of how we broke it down. Obviously it was a few years in the making, but we kind
Right.
of were able to narrow it down that way.
I'm going to come back to what you just ended on, but I want to get this question from Ginger Nation 96. Who was the best player you ever played with that never made it to the NHL? That's a good question. That's a
That
pretty good
is a
question.
good question. Um, yeah, like there was some really good players. There's some really good players that played a few games that should have got more. Um, yeah, best that I played with
Tough,
that
huh?
never made it. Um, hmm.
You got Ginger Nation. You got him right there.
Yeah, yeah, he got me. Yeah, there was a guy. He Ginger worked with our club in Wilkes when I was there, so he has. I think he has a couple ideas. There was a young French guy that we were there, Kev Veilleux, who this guy had all the tools. He was 6'4", 6'5", could skate. He was tough. He fought. He scored goals. He had a lot of stuff, and he had a few injuries that kind of derailed him earlier in his career, and kind of got put in a tough situation and never was able to bounce back. But he, from a skill set standpoint and what the NHL was at that time, this kid, he had everything.
Cool. Now I want to jump back to before you came overseas. One of the things that I do is I educate players who want to come overseas to play basketball, mostly Americans, Canadians.
Yep.
And I even wrote my book. There is my book about exactly that, which would take college seniors through the end of their junior season all the way through to coming overseas and ending their rookie season overseas. So everything
Yep.
that could happen in between. Um, and there's not a lot of people doing things like that. People
Yeah.
rely on agents. How did you inform yourself, or how did you and your wife inform yourself to what would be good for you? Was it your agent telling you, or did you do your own research? How did you kind of come to a decision? Okay, I'm going to go overseas, so I'm going to start looking into these options myself, or talk to my agent.
Yeah. So it was a combination. Playing like I ended up playing 8 years in North America before I traveled over. So I made a lot of relationships along the way. So I reached out to a lot of people in their experiences, really. Like I had a couple guys that were a little bit older than me when I first turned pro that ended up going and playing in Russia. So those were the people that I was speaking to
Right,
first to see how it was, what they thought about it, and actually some of the teams that were interested early in my career were places that they played. So I was asking about the city, what it was like bringing family, how about family visiting, and then so I kind of did the same kind of thing about Switzerland, Sweden, Germany, and it's probably the same as in the basketball world. Like the world is so small, and if
yeah,
you have,
yeah,
there's 3 degrees of separation, and I think
yeah,
when you talk to other players, they're going to give you the honest feedback. Like
yeah,
they're going to tell you, and it's not like you're trying to come take their job. You're like, what is
right,
the league like? What are the cities like? You're not, you know what I mean? You're not looking for like a handout. You're just trying to get a feel on what it's like to live there. And I think,
yeah,
we kind of did that with the networks first, and then obviously we worked through the agent to see what cities are going to be available or if anybody is shown any interest, and then I kind of just go down the roster and see if I know anybody that's played there in the last couple of years, just to get a feel for the city. Is kind of how we worked it.
Thank you, because that is exactly what I tell these players. They have to do their own due diligence and check out the situations. If you have any kind of interest, check out the team, check out the city, check out the roster, see
Yep.
if they're how they did the year before. Don't just say, okay, I got a contract, woohoo,
Well,
I'm
that's the thing. Like,
signing.
yeah, and like in the where we were when we first went to Switzerland, like you can get relegated the next year. Like if you're in the bottom of that league and you go down, then your contract's gone. So yeah, that might be the team offering you a 2 3 year deal, but it doesn't mean anything if they're out of the league the next year. So
Exactly.
it's absolutely right. You have to know kind of if are they trending up, or and that's kind of where when I started in Switzerland, we went to Lausanne and they came up I think the year before or maybe 2 years before that, but they were the pieces that they were adding. They weren't going to be in the bottom 2 3 anymore. Like we were trending in the right direction, and that's the squad that. And it was in the French side, so for Canadians, we had a better grasp of
Right.
than
Language.
the German than we're working with right now. Is French came a little bit easier, so that was a situation that it ended up being a great spot for us.
um, there's a word that's tossed around a lot in sports, and I absolutely cannot stand this word. And I read an article about you that said this, and because you bounced around a lot, so they called you a journeyman in this
Yeah,
article that I read about you. And I despise that word like the pest. Like I
yeah,
hate that word. Um, but it's you try to create some kind of tag to explain that a guy moved around a lot.
yeah.
Okay,
But
whatever.
and that's the thing. Like I feel in sports that's kind of there's not too many people that sit with one team their whole career.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
for me, it's been in North America, it was, you go put down somebody's stat sheet, you see a lot of teams. Well, if you're going between the NHL and the American League team, that's 2 teams every year. And then if you get traded and you go up and down, now you're at 4 teams every year. And it's, for me, it was, you always try to put yourself in a best situation. That I was trying to keep going back to the NHL. So if this team looked like it had a better opportunity for me to jump back up, well, that's where I would sign with for the previous season. And for me, you realize how much easier it was when you didn't have, like, now you're traveling with the kids and you're worrying about finding them
Right.
schools and your wife and
Right.
stuff. For me at that time, it was just me, me and my wife were just married. Like, we didn't care where we lived. We would find a place in Springfield, Mass, or we'd find a place in Utica, New York. Like, it
Right.
was harder, but if that was the best opportunity to get back to the NHL, those are the paces that we picked, and that's the way we jumped on those opportunities.
I like the fact that you say we
Yeah.
about you and your wife, that you kind of made these decisions together, because of course where you're moving, she's moving, and she also has to be comfortable.
Well, and that's the thing. It's been great. We've had, we kind of do a pro and con every time, like where we're going to try to travel. And like, obviously it's the last 6 or 7 years, it's been a lot more with the kids, but she still has a great career at home. And so when we go into we went the Northeast, we were in upstate New York and Springfield, Mass and stuff. Those are easy travel places for her to go back home and to get her shifts in and work when she had to and stuff. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a team, and obviously more so now with the kids, that
Right.
she has a good handle on the house here, because now in the German league too, we travel a lot more than we have the last 5 or 6 years. So there's a lot of days that she's doing a lot of the things with all the kids all day long when we're gone.
Is Carly there? Is she?
She is. I think she's still helping with a little bit of
Oh,
homework
okay.
right now.
I was going to ask her a question, because I've had player wives on before,
Okay.
and one thing we've always talked about with the player wives is that kind of loss of identity when you're married to an athlete. You are then Dustin's wife, mommy,
Yeah.
right? Kind of like that. The women sometimes lose their sense of identity. That's what I wanted to ask her about, but we'll skip that for now.
Yeah.
And
I think, you know what, she does a really good job. Like, I think having her job at home, and we have a small, we're a small community where we're at, but we got a tight knit group of friends that I think she's always done a great job of staying close with everybody, keeping in contact with everybody. And I think, having that job at home too, she still feel there's a lot of purpose still in that too. And I think, it is hard. It's hard coming over here, and Germany's nice for as a family. One of the reasons we came here is that you're allowed 8 or 9 or 10 imports on the team. So
so you're not alone.
you're not alone. Like in Switzerland, say last year in Switzerland, we had one other Canadian, one Latvian player, and one German guy. And so those are all the other than the Swiss, those are the only other imports they have on the team. So it makes it more difficult, right? Like it's a different lifestyle where you come here. I think we have 10 imports that are mostly North American, and then there's 2 or 3 North American guys that have German passports. So we almost have 13 North American guys on the team.
Right.
So and then everybody pretty much has a family too. So it's a big group here that makes it more comfortable.
Yeah. So let's go to 2016 when you start in Lausanne. Um, what was it like? Was there a huge period of adaptation? We're talking strictly hockey wise,
Yeah.
coming from North America, NHL, to Lausanne, Switzerland, and now playing in a European system. Is there a really big difference
Yeah, I
between
think
the two countries or
yeah,
two
it's a
continents?
big change. We had a North American coach at the time, which is another reason why we ended up choosing that spot. But like the ice sizes are different.
Ah, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, so there's a Olympic size, the European Olympic size ice, and there's a North American. North American is smaller.
North American is smaller.
Yeah, so it's more
Wow. And
physical. That's why
basketball
there's.
is in basketball is the other way around. The
Oh,
FIBA
really?
courts here are smaller than NBA courts.
And are like what are the free throw 3-point lines the same or?
All no, the 3-point line is in Europe. The 3-point line is closer to the basket. It's further out in the NBA, but the court size the dimension of the court size are different.
That's interesting. Yeah, so it's yeah, Canada or North America, the NHL size rinks are smaller. They're
Wow.
narrower and shorter.
Wow.
And so here it's a totally different way of playing offense here. Because everybody, when I started in Lausanne, everybody was playing like a man on man, which you never see in North America.
Uh-huh.
And it took a little while. I had a pretty good start, but I think in Switzerland, with the small number of imports, there's a lot of pressure.
A lot of
Like
more
they
pressure, yeah.
expect these guys to be
It's the same with basketball.
a point a game. Like you need to be a
Right.
point a game. You need to be the first power play, this and that. And we
Right.
had a good start there, and I was having a decent. I was probably like 0.75 points a game or point 0.8 point a game, but it was still like, ooh, is this the guy that we signed for 2 years? Is this and that? And then as the season go on, you just learn you realize how you have to create offense in a Europe like on this type of ice. And for me,
That's interesting.
I I I use my head as like one the way I see the game is kind of one of my strengths as a player. So after you realize where the space is, where the time is, how to use your other players on this side of the sheet, it made the game go a lot easier.
I'm not the biggest hockey know-it-all kind of guy, but I
Yeah,
know some things, and I know that the center is pretty much the point guard of
basically,
hockey,
yes.
right? So how did your role change from being overseas or in back home or in the
Yeah,
NHL and then coming here? Was it a huge adjustment for you being a center and being kind of like the focal point of the offense and sitting everybody up? How was that tough?
it's different. Like a lot of your reads here, you just had to get used to the more space. Like the different reads that you have in North America, everything happens quicker because everybody's closer to you. Where
Right.
here you have to you just had to get used to the difference in size. I felt for me, it was getting reads where, oh, I think I can get that guy. And you're like, oh shit, I'm actually 15 feet farther away from him than I thought I was going to be. You know what I mean? It was just like that kind of stuff. You're like, oh, I'm not as close as I thought I was. And after you get used to playing on the ice, now when I go back home and I skate in the summers, you're like, oh, it feels like everybody's right on top of each other here. I don't know how I played over here. I like the space more now. So yeah, like after you get used to it, I think that was the hardest thing. It's you have to get used to how quick or here it seems like stuff happens a little bit slower. Like it takes more time to get up the ice, and there is that little bit of difference in space that you have, and you have a little bit more time to make the plays. So for a player like me, it actually helped once you got used to the
Mhm.
size.
That's really interesting that it's like that because that's one of the reasons why I named my book Same Name Different Game because with this basketball in
Yeah,
Europe it's much different. You can't really see it, but there's the Canadian flag right there and the
yeah,
American flag here. It's totally different here than here.
down there.
It's a basketball. It's a round ball. You got a hoop. You know those kind of
Rules are
things.
pretty
But
much the same.
rules are pretty much the same. But there is just a totally different system. In America, everything is very much um, is faster paced and more individual
Yeah,
type. And over here, it's more movement, spacing, and team focused. So it's tough when Americans come over here and they have to get used to that. And I totally feel everything you said about that
yeah, it's
because
crazy to
it's like
think
that for
guys.
everybody.
You always think like guys that will do well over here,
Oh
and then end up
no.
going back, and then you see
Oh
guys that you're like, oh, I played against this guy for a few years, like, and you see him come over to Europe and he does amazing, and it's just
yeah,
how guys can adapt, and if they're willing to, right? You
exactly.
do something long enough, and you're not like, ah, that's not how I play. Well,
Exactly. That is really you are speaking totally out of my mouth when I talk to players because that's exactly what I tell them. I mean, I played 13 seasons as a pro overseas in 6 different countries, and I know guys that were way more talented than me
yeah,
that could have never or that didn't make it as long as I did. They came over here one year, thought everything was going to be like back home, not even considering we're talking about just basketball, not even the lifestyle, language,
yeah,
and stuff that you have to adapt to. And I tell everybody when I'm asked, the biggest thing that probably helped me was my ability to adapt. I adapt to every situation that I'm in, and that probably helped keep me over here. I'm still living over here.
yeah.
That's probably what got me so long my career, and it's definitely helped me since I decided to live here as well. This is crazy.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think you're being really short-sighted if you think you could play the same. Like I'm not playing the same way I was
Oh
playing
yeah,
at 7.
you,
And
you'll
if
be
you
on
think,
the first plane smoking.
yeah, there's no way. There's the game changes, the way that people, even the way coaches, rules, everything from this is I think this is year 15 for me, and you think about how much has changed in that, and you're
Yeah,
just like, there's if you're not willing to change and willing to keep going, like it just passes you by.
definitely. You played a total of 6 years in Switzerland, 4 years in Lausanne, and two in Bern. Um, I also played in Switzerland. I played in Geneva for 2 years,
Yep.
and I lived in between those seasons in Zurich, which is the most expensive country
In
period in
the
the world.
It's
Uh,
crazy.
it's ridiculous. How was it for you and the children and your wife living in Bern and in Lausanne?
We loved it, honestly. It was the 4 years we spent in Lausanne were amazing. We had our kids right in the French regular schools. They were doing everything, the daycares, everything was great. We had a beautiful spot. Lausanne, it's not, it's obviously it's on the same lake as Geneva. It's
Right,
probably obviously a little lesser known in North America where it is, but it's a awesome city.
beautiful. Yeah,
Beautiful city. We were right by the lake where we live. So outside of the rink was great. Like we had really close friends. We had another Canadian couple, the Emertons, that lived right in the building with us, and our kids were right the same age. So that part was
yeah,
perfect. And
yeah.
while we were there, when I first signed there, we had an old, like a 40, 50-year-old stadium. They tore it down. We played in a temporary one for 2 years, and then they built like a state-of-the-art brand new arena there for my last year there, which was awesome. And then going to Bern, they won 3 of the 4 years before we signed there, and they're like one of the biggest clubs in Europe. They have 16. I think they've outside the NHL, they've averaged the most fans over the last 10 years. They get about 16, 17,000 a game. So
Wow.
we went to the capital, and it was, Bern's an awesome city too. It's a little different. And I feel like all the cities in Switzerland had a different feel, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
Zurich is awesome too, but if you
yeah,
go to Zurich and Bern, they're two totally
yeah,
different cities, right? Like
yeah.
so, yeah, we had a great spot there too, and we had a couple tough years. There was some changes in what they were doing in the management style there and the coaching staff that they were trying to put together. So, we had a couple tough years, but outside the rink, we enjoyed the time there too, and found a couple good schools for the kids there. They went to an English school in Bern because the Swiss German they
Right.
speak there was a little bit tougher, and so we did the international school there. But it was cool. It was a cool experiences for the kids. They talk about all the places we've been so far, so it's been great.
Um, what are the differences between German hockey and Swiss hockey? Because I'm sure it's just like basketball. Every country
Yeah,
has their own kind of style.
yeah, exactly. Every country is different, and so it's actually cool. That's like we play these Champion League games that we've been,
Right,
we talked about it at the school one day, and it's different. So Swiss is fast. They're smaller guys and they're fast. That's kind of like their MO. They might not make the best plays all the time, but it's fast hockey. That's kind of their MO, and they've been building their national program is getting stronger and stronger every year because the quality is getting better,
right.
and they make teams skate with them. And so German hockey is a little bit heavier. It's like bigger guys, a little more
More
physical.
physical.
Yeah, and that probably has something to do with the amount of imports they have. So they bring a lot of guys from North America that are, a little bit bigger, a little bit older, maybe have a little bit more experience. So for that reason, it might not be as a fast of a league, but Germany's known as like a heavy league. Like it's good if you come in when we play these Champions League games. We played Swedish teams, we played Finnish teams. Like they know they're coming in, and it's going to be a heavier game for them. That's probably something that they're not used to in their regular seasons.
Um, what you guys are the Grizzlies? You're in currently in fifth place, I believe.
Yeah.
How would you say the season is going so far for you?
Yeah, it's been good so far for us. I think we've been battling a little bit of an injury bug kind of going around our team. I don't think we've played a full healthy roster. I think we've had one game this year that we've had our full roster available to us. And I think we've had our ups and downs. I think we have a team that we can compete with anybody in this league, and I think we've shown that at times, but we also shown that we have to be ready as well because there's games that
Right.
we haven't looked great. So I think it's a learning curve for us, and I think we've been trending. I think if you look at us the way we've played probably the last 7 to 10 games, I think
Yeah.
we're building in the right direction. And
Right.
we've had a busy schedule. We've had Champions League. We just actually got knocked out of that last week with the Swedish team. We were up in Luleå. But yeah, I think we're working in the right direction, and we got a great group here. It's for us. It's the first time having this many imports again, and it's nice. It's nice just having the familiar faces, and
Right.
it feels like we were playing in North America.
How do the fans rate between Germany and Switzerland?
Yeah, they're different. Like I said, Bern was getting 17,000 when we were there. Obviously, there was a COVID for like a year and a half of that, so there was times that we weren't getting anybody. But
Right.
Lausanne had great fans too. We had in the new stadium there was 9,000, and the older stadium we had was 6.5, 7,000. So with it's like soccer fans there. Like it was a cool experience going from North America to come in there to have the drums and the everything happening the whole game. And I think here in Wolfsburg, like we have good fans too. It's a smaller rink, and obviously we're not packing in quite as many people. But I think if you look at when we have our big games, there's been some loud games for us here.
Yeah.
So I think the same atmosphere. Obviously, it's a smaller setup, but the European style of fans is a cool experience when you come from North America, and it's awesome here. The kids, after wins, the kids come out on the ice and are able to wave at the fans, so they think it's hilarious.
That's dope. My last real question. You are, I will put this carefully. You are of advanced age at 34. Father Time is undefeated. How much longer do you think you got?
Yeah, you know what? We've thrown around this question often around here. I think in the last couple of years, and you don't put a time on it for me. We play this season out. Obviously, I think earlier in my career, you always like, well, okay, what are we doing next year? Is this team going to resign me? Is this going to happen? I think for now, we're just enjoying it. We're going to play this year. We're going to see what happens, how we make out towards the end of the season. Obviously, you want to win, right? So that's what we're focused on now, and we kind of just do a reset in the summer and see where we're at. It's getting harder, I would say that much for sure, with the kids, and the switching schools all the time, and now they're playing sports and they're getting into these activities, and even when we came here, it was like, well, where are we going to put them in school? There's nothing in Wolfsburg, so we got to look outside, and so for us, I don't know. We'll see what happens. We're still enjoying it. It's still fun. You're right, though. It's never Father Time is not undefeated, so we'll see what happens.
It's crazy because I stopped playing when I was 34. I became a coach when I was 34 in the first league in Germany, and when I look back on it, I think that was definitely the right time. Like I've got too much pride, and I never wanted to play past my expiration date.
Yeah, I think
And
that's, for me, that was a big thing. I had a big shoulder surgery last year, and it was one of those things that when you're going through that rehab process and you're going through that, you start looking at it, well, is this the end? Like, am I going to be able to come back and play? And I think that's a pride point that I had, that that's not how I was going to end my career. I wasn't going to go out.
Right.
I wasn't letting an injury. I still think I can contribute. I still think I can be one of the better players on a team. And I still think when team wants to count on me, I'm going to be there to do it. And that wasn't a way I was ready to go out. And so that's, this is the kind of season that, I'm trying to prove something to myself and to the team too, that I'm still here and I can still play. But yeah, you're right. It's stuff like that when you start looking at it at the age, you're like, well, I still want to be able to do stuff when I'm done playing too. So, it's one of those things that it was definitely something that I thought hard about before the season.
So I got just a couple more questions for you, more fun questions. This first one is, I love this first question. Kiss, Kill, or Marry, NHL edition.
Okay.
Pittsburgh, Dallas Stars, Arizona Coyotes.
Oh, I think
who are you kissing? Who are you killing? Who are you marrying?
I think you marry Pat. That's where I spent most of in that organization was most of my career. And they're kind of in that top tier, the way they treat people, the way they run everything. They do things the right way. And I don't think I have one bad word over my time there and any of the experiences, and they treat people well. There's a lot of people that are still in that organization that have been there since I was there. So, you'd marry them. I think Dallas you'd have to kiss. It's a I was able to win a championship in their
Farm
farm team
team.
there, and it was an awesome. That's one of my favorite cities in the U.S. is Austin, Texas.
Really?
It was such a cool town. We were a good team, so you're able to have a lot of fun there. And then, yeah, Arizona, I guess, is the last one to go. They can go.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you to expound on it. I don't want to throw you under the bus.
No.
So besides the fighting that goes on in hockey, one thing that I'm always interested in different sports, and I asked, I had a professional volleyball player that plays overseas, and I asked her this as well. Do you talk shit on the ice?
Yeah, I think you have
Is there a lot of shit talking
Yeah,
going on ice?
absolutely.
Are you a shit talker, Dustin?
Not usually. I usually, I'm pretty level-headed. It's kind of how pretty calm and collective. But yeah, like I'll give it to guys. We had a incident in our game in the Champions League. A guy kept diving, and it's just, and it was a Canadian guy too. And you're just one of those things. You're just like, you're disrespecting the game. Like you don't have to do that. Like, and I played with him too. Was the thing I played with him when in North America. So that just drove me insane.
That's great. What's the best thing about living in Europe?
I think it's the experiences. Like even this afternoon, we were able to take the kids to a Christmas market, and that's something that's not huge at home for us.
Right.
And the ability to travel. I think we were able to. I think I don't know if it's the same in basketball, but there's a lot of international breaks during our seasons usually, and so we've been able to take the kids and travel to basically all over Europe through for day trips, driving, trains, whatever. And I think those type of experiences is one of the reasons that we came over, is that you're able to travel Europe. Something that, for us from North America to travel, if you come over to Europe, you're traveling to maybe one city or two, where over the last 7 years, we've been able to travel to, eight, nine different countries, and do that experiences. So I think, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love too. I've heard that hockey players are the most superstitious athletes on earth. Do you have any superstitions?
I'm not a huge one. There's a lot of guys that are. I will give you that. But I'm not huge. I change up the food just because it gets boring if you do it. If we're playing every other day for the last 3 months, I can't do the same food all the time. But my boys get to pick out my lucky socks for game days.
Cool.
That's kind of they like to get in on the act now. We have handshakes now, so if we're at home games and they come down before the game, we got handshakes together.
That's cool.
Other than that, kind of just getting to the rink at the same time, that kind of thing. Just kind of puts you have that structure to before the game, and that's kind of would be more my superstition than
to have like a structured routine.
Yeah, like just getting there on the same kind of time, and then I know I have time to get whatever I want to do before a game. I can get that all done.
What's the strangest superstition you've ever heard of from a hockey guy? Where you were just
man, there's tons, but like I played with guys that we went out for dinner the night before a game. If we won that game, same group of guys, same restaurant, same table, we're going all the time. And you're just like, you get the message like, I gotta go. You're like, yeah, it's. If you get that call that we're going back to the same spot, you got to go with all the guys. Oh, yeah. But there's some, and I'm sure there's a lot more than that. But it's funny when you become a part of one, you didn't even know it. You're like, I wasn't even trying to get in on this.
Good. And last one. Did you ever start a hockey fight, and later thought, what the fuck was I thinking?
No, I don't fight often. I had a couple in the American League, and one I had a guy, I don't know why, I'd never played against this guy, whatever. He asked me to fight 2-3 games in a row, and we were always whooping their team too. So I was like, why am I I don't need to fight you. And then finally there was a game, I think it was either my first or second year in the American League, guy asked me to fight, and he's like, and they were beating us finally, and I had no reason. I had no other reasons now, and I'm like, all right, let's go. So we fought, and nothing really happened, but I'm just like, there was no reason. I had no reason, no excuses. I was
Wait a minute. All right. That's something that I also did not know.
Yeah.
You can ask somebody to fight.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it goes. I thought it was like,
well, sometimes it depends.
You get checked and you're like, I'm gonna fuck you up, kind of like that.
Yeah, like it's sometimes like usually, most likely, Well, okay, so when I first started, there was a lot more like stage fights. Like guys would right before the puck even dropped, they'd be like, "All right, we're gonna fight." And now they kind of took that part. They added more penalty minutes to it, and they try to like discourage like the stage fights. They don't want. They think it's bad, and everything that how much has come from concussions in the last
Yeah,
10 years.
yeah.
They're trying to take those kind of fights out of hockey, which you know what I kind of
Makes
agree with.
sense.
There's so much more information now than there was when we started, and I think it's better for people's health and safety, whatever. Um, but usually, it's if there's a bad hit, if there's somebody hits your goalie, there's kind
Right.
of like a code that you know if that could lead to your fight. If you take advantage of somebody and they're in a vulnerable spot, you know if there's a younger
It's
guy,
going down.
yeah, we're gonna stand up for the guy. And you know sometimes in some of the leagues the reffing isn't as great, and they're not going to protect the players. So sometimes you guys take it upon themselves.
That's funny because I just saw because I was doing, when you Google shows you everything. So when I'm trying to look into you and find stories and things like that and in investigating you, um all of a sudden a thing pops up on my Instagram feed where a guy barrels into a goalie
Yeah.
and his teammates just
Yeah.
they just rushed him and it's like five guys on this guy that hit the goalie and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that was in Tampa the other night. I saw that video too, and it's true. And like you know, he's probably the best goalie in the NHL. That guy in Tampa Bay, Vasilevsky. And so that's the thing. If these guys try to take advantage, and you know, if they hurt this guy, that their team's done. So
Right.
they have those
They
guys.
like totally dogpiled him. Like he
Yeah,
had no chance.
there was 10 pairs of gloves on the ice in
Yeah,
four
they're throwing
seconds.
the gloves. I thought that was great. I thought it was great. Hey, Dustin, man, thank you, man. You hit the shot at the buzzer, man. Like I tell everybody, that's it for the questions. I really, really appreciate you coming on and showing the parallels between our sports and also the time that you're here in Europe as well and you dropped some dimes, man. You dropped some knowledge that I say that I hope those of you teammates that are watching that you really picked up on it as well, that I'm not the only person saying these things. Um, but yeah, man, thanks. I really appreciate it. I hope I don't get fired tomorrow because I had you on my show. Um,
If they need to talk to me, they can just give me a call. Don't worry about it. I think we're good,
you
man.
got my back.
I got your back. Don't
All
worry.
right. So, man, just get on up out of here. I'm gonna
All
say
right,
goodbye
ciao.
to
Thanks, man.
everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, I appreciate it, man.
Yep.
So, teammates, that was another great interview. That was pretty cool. I found out a lot of things that I didn't know about hockey, and that it's really really nice to have someone who's a professional athlete and has done it at the highest level come on and talk to you and give you their perception of things. And I really like the parallels between um, a hockey player coming overseas and how it is for basketball players as well. It's a lot of the same things. So for that, I'm really grateful for him coming on and giving us his feedback, and that's pretty cool. I thought that was a pretty dope interview. Like I said, I hope I don't get fired tomorrow for crossing the line. See. I see some of my students or some of the students in my school they're in here, so I'm sure they'll kind of hit me up tomorrow and be like, "Oh, I saw your show. I saw your show, Mr. McCall." So, yeah. So, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. As usual, I'm glad if you watched for 30 seconds or if you stay for the whole hour and 3 minutes now. Those of you that are new, I hope to see you again. Those of you that have been around, I hope to see you again. Yeah, and that's pretty much about it. Everybody stay safe, keep your families healthy, have a good holiday season, and I will be back next week for another episode. I won't say who it is, but it's a pretty cool guest as well. And yeah, thank you for watching. Old Head out.